What up, everybody? This is your boy Dedrian from House of Wrestling, and this video is going to be very interesting. Yes, I am back. Thank God. My shoulder is rehabbing really well and everything. Thank you guys for reaching out and wishing me well and everything. But man, this video is going to be pretty dope. What if Shad and Tony Khan purchased WWE? Of course, since January, there's just been rampant speculation, rumors, reports, what have you, regarding a potential sale of the WWE. Nick Khan has gone on CNBC, referencing that there could be a sale soon. Of course, Tony Khan has expressed interest in purchasing WWE on several interviews he's conducted since the beginning of 2023. Of course, we've heard names of NBC Universal, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Warner Bros. Discovery, of course, the private investment fund from Saudi Arabia, which in the last several days, we have heard, the private investment fund and Tony Khan are potentially, the final two potential buyers for the WWE. Again, that's potentially. Of course, at the time of this recording, which is after AEW Revolution in February. See how this video dates in a couple of months in 2023. But yeah, this video, I've been wanting to do this for a while. So it's interesting to think about the pros and also the cons. And let's face it, the cons are legitimate concern, no pun intended, but the concerns are legitimate as far as, the concerns like, man, is this repeating what happened in 2001? I was 19 when WCW and ECW was purchased by WWE. So I remember that feels like yesterday. So if you do have those concerns, if you're a wrestling fan, if you're a diehard WWE fan, diehard AEW fan, if you're a fan like me that watches both and love both, those concerns are valid. Like, that shouldn't be dismissed and like, oh, we shouldn't. Like, no, we should think about that because, let's face it, like, acquiring WWE, especially if you're a wrestling fan, like Tony Khan, and I know I'm kind of jumping the gun on my notes and everything that I have right here, but realistically, man, you're absorbing, forgive me, a lot of assets and just a lot of wrestling history, and of course the name WWE, what it comes with it, the brand recognition worldwide. Man, that's a lot of power. And one of the images came to my head when I was preparing my notes is Lord of the Rings, like the ring, like, ooh, the ring. And it's like, man, is it gonna really change Tony Khan? Because there's an old saying that money magnifies you. If you are an SOB, it just magnifies you as an SOB. But if you are a kind person, it just magnifies you being kind. So it just magnifies your characteristics and attributes and stuff like that. So that's a really interesting question to think about and a concern. Not saying it's gonna happen or anything, or he's like that. This is just hypothetical. Just putting it out there because I don't want people saying, "Oh, you said," like, no, this is hypothetical. But again, these concerns are legitimate. But the pros are, I know a few people may think, well, what's the pros? Like, he's going to own all of wrestling. Well, technically, he's not going to own all of wrestling because WWE isn't all of wrestling. It is just a brand who has a large market share in America. Worldwide, there is at least 44 wrestling promotions. So don't know how one promotion is all 44 promotions. So that's totally no. But man, there's a lot of pros to really think about, and the pros that I have listed here are more centered on what Tony Khan has presented in the last 4 years, and also what WWE brings to the table, and also things that, let's face it, maybe us as fans, we kind of assumed that they would go in that route, but because of Vince McMahon and just his track record within the pro wrestling industry, um, even before 2001, but just after the Monday Night Wars, like it came across like he was very possessive and territorial and almost like a Julius Caesar. Like, this is my empire and no one is going to rule or have as much dominion in this territory as much as me. That's how it came across on not only television, but just reports and news and business deals that happened in the last 20 years. So it's, some may not think that way, some may think that way, but you can't ignore what has been presented to us from Mr. McMahon. So, you know what, with all this, let's get into the pros of what if Shad and Tony Khan purchased WWE. So the first pro, and this is something that we've seen in the 4 years that AEW has existed. Mind you, Tony Khan and AEW isn't perfect. It isn't the absolute, oh, they do nothing wrong, they have everything all together. No, that is not the case. There's not one promotion that has everything perfect and is dandelions and fireworks and, oh, it's so great. And no, there are things that you might want to improve on. But one thing that he has done pretty good, and we've seen with Forbidden Door and everything, is working with other promotions. Now, what is one of the biggest knocks against WWE in the last 4 years, and even before 4 years? That they don't necessarily work well with other promotions unless they're about to buy them. And I think that's something that if Shad and Tony Khan purchased WWE, I do think that's something that they would really have to establish with other promotions. Like, hey, just because we bought WWE doesn't mean we want to buy everything. Of course, if it presents itself or what have you, okay. But also we got to look at how Tony Khan so far has used Ring of Honor. He's incorporated into his programming, which, granted, it wasn't the best, but he did incorporate it. Going back to 2001 when Vince McMahon bought WCW and ECW, he did incorporate it, but the way ECW and WCW was presented, it was presented in a way that was very condescending and very dismissive of what those companies brought to pro wrestling. And also, it was very rushed. And not go too much into that storyline, but there was a lot of things that could have. Okay, I'll go into it. So, going back to when 2001, when Vince McMahon bought WCW and ECW, one thing that was very glaring at that time, and many people noticed it at that time, and I remember it, that the invasion angle and the way they incorporate WCW, it wasn't centered on the main stars of WCW and ECW. And of course, they couldn't get the WCW guys because they were under contract. So with that, a lot of people said, why wasn't the focus on ECW when they had more of their original wrestlers and have them face the WWE guys? Because at that time, before the purchase was taking place, going into 2001, WWF was number one, ECW surpassed WCW as number two, and WCW was number three. That is what was going on at that time, and a lot of people were just like, man, why is ECW joining WCW when ECW didn't like WCW and was pretty much had a working relationship with WWE? So that didn't make sense. So getting back to it, fast forward a year later in 2002, I mean, you basically got the WWE draft. ECW was no more. WCW was no more. But yet they split into two brands, which realistically that should have been WCW. So it's like you could have just waited a year and you had most of the WCW top stars coming in: Hogan, Hall, Nash, Rey Mysterio, Ric Flair. Trying to think of who else at that time came in. You had Scott Steiner later on. Of course, a few months later, you had Goldberg. So you could have had all these, like you could have had the WCW, WWF thing, but that's neither here nor there. So with this with working with other promotions like Tony Khan, again, their track record, they work with NWA, they work with Impact, they've worked with Pro Wrestling Noah, New Japan. Of course, you had the Forbidden Door pay-per-view. You had, what else? You had wrestlers appear at Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. You had Chris Jericho not too long ago appear at PWG. You had several wrestlers working at Warrior Wrestling. Trying to think of what other promotions you had. You had them work a few independent promotions, and that's something that, man, if they do buy, I do see that happening, considering how Tony Khan has worked with other promotions. And let's face it, most wrestling fans, and particularly, I'm not going to say all WWE fans, but some WWE fans are like, man, it'd be cool if WWE worked with, New Japan or AAA or AEW. Like, man, it'd be cool if they had this cross promotion. But of course, the way WWE is structured, it's structured the way Vince McMahon wants his company and his empire to run. He wants it to be exclusive, the premier pinnacle of professional wrestling and sports entertainment. That's what he wants. And I think with Shad Khan and Tony Khan, if they purchase it, I don't think it's going to have that model. I do think it's going to have a sports model, and I do think it will have, hey, let's work together. And not jumping the gun going into point two, but also what's been one of the biggest complaints with AEW the last couple of years, but more so with WWE in the last 10 years. Man, why aren't they using this guy? Why aren't they using her? Why aren't they using, this wrestler, that wrestler, this wrestler? If you work with other promotions, that eliminates that. So now, if you don't have anything creative for someone, hey, let them go to New Japan. Let them go to AAA. You know what? Hey, go to Impact Wrestling. Hey, go to Pro Wrestling Noah. Rev Pro. Hey, you know what? Go over here. Go over there. It builds. How would I put this? It kills two birds with one stone. One, if you don't have nothing creative for them, they can go do something, and then it alleviates. Hey, we got to find something for them, and hey, if they go out there and they're in this promotion or that promotion or what have you, they might stumble upon something. Ooh, I got something. Case in point, like in AEW, a lot of people, where's Miro? Hey, you know what? Let him go to Japan. Let him go here. Let him go there. In WWE, man, who's one person? Man, I'm trying to think who else. Man, they should use this person. Mustafa Ali. There you go. That's, Mustafa Ali. Oh, we don't have nothing. Hey, send those guys out. Let them find something, and boom, they find something. Boom, they could come back and do their thing. Now, going into the second pro. And this is real interesting, and this is something that, mind you, all these pros, in order for this, I see working, is that they're going to have to reshape I don't want to say, it's kind of the business model, but also if you could say the infrastructure of WWE. And that is WWE operating like a globalized territory system. And what I mean by that, if you are familiar with the old territory system, and I know many of you are like, oh, territory system, that's so outdated. That's this, that's that. Here's how I see it working. And this plays on Shad Khan and Tony Khan, more Tony Khan's experience working with the Jacksonville Jaguars and them being in the NFL as owners and everything. What I see them potentially doing, and could be, mind you, this is hypothetical and everything, I could see them reshaping WWE as a league of promotions. And what I mean by that, and let's face it, when it comes to brand recognition, WWE is no different than McDonald's. You have the NFL, NHL, Grammys. Like WWE is a brand recognition. Now, should WWE be operating like a brand that is the pinnacle and exclusive of sports entertainment? That's neither here nor there. But let's look at the facts. What else is there for WWE to do as far as pro wrestling? They have the largest market share in pro wrestling, in sports entertainment. They have the most experience on broadcast television in the United States as far as exposure and everything. So there's really, what else is there to do for the WWE as far as brand recognition and everything? Now, with this globalized territory system, I do see, and I know many of you are like, what do you mean you see hot territory system? Tony Khan's going to do that. Now, let's go back the last several years. He's worked with Impact. He's worked with New Japan. He's worked with Noah, Dragon Gate. Oh, no, Dragon Gate worked with MLW. Now, MLW, that's a whole different thing because the lawsuit and everything. So that's up in the air. But you look at all the promotions they work with, and you go back on several interviews that not only Tony Khan, but Billy Corgan has said in the last several years, mind you, since 2021, 2022, what have you. And Billy Corgan has said, we can't compete against a giant individually. We got to stick together. Now, mind you, that's when Vince McMahon was in control and everything. So with that, AEW, New Japan, Impact, NWA, PWG, AAA, CMLL, those companies practically operated like a territory system outside of a WWE. So it isn't something, oh, how could that happen? Like they were already operating as a territory system. Now, if you have WWE involved, now that just brings a lot of things. And also, people got to realize, like, if there is a territory system, a globalized territory system under WWE, that helps every promotion. Because if you show that WWE logo, you know that's wrestling. There's going to be top of the line action, merchandising, like right away you think top of the line just by that brand recognition. Now this way, what I do see potentially happening or could happen, I don't see it directly being WWE as the pinnacle or anything. I do see it reshaping where going back to, hey, a league of promotions. Why? The old territory system had 25 territories. Now that was more like the NWA territory system or what have you. There was 25 wrestling promotions. There is 44 worldwide. So I do see that happening. And one thing they could do, and I do see it possibly happen considering how Tony Khan has kept elements of Ring of Honor and everything, is, hey, let's have New Japan, CML, AAA, Impact Wrestling. Hey, you throw in Rev Pro, Stardom, what have you. Have these promotions under WWE, and WWE is a league. Now, I know many are saying, well, what do they do with Raw, SmackDown, this? Well, the promotion under WWE, you bring back the Federation name. There you go. The WWE Federation. There you go. It's synonymous. When you mention Federation right away, wait a minute. San Martino, Hogan, Bret Hart, Stone Cold, like Rock, like that's that lineage. And I do think that's something that we also could see is a return to a sports focused product. I do think they'll still have elements of the sports entertainment product. And also, I do want to add, if you think that Tony Khan and Shad Khan, if they purchase WWE, they're going to be like, you know what? We're going to start a new crew. We don't want Triple H. You are absolutely out your mind. They are going to work with Triple H. And also, you do have to keep in mind you, this is hypothetical. It's not saying could see this happening. Do you realize the money that a Triple H, Tony Khan partnership working together under one umbrella could bring? Look at what AEW has done in the 4 years. You look at what Triple H has done with NXT and what he's done here. You put them together. Damn, that's some good stuff that we could look forward to as wrestling fans, whether it's sports entertainment fans or pro wrestling fans. So yeah, getting back to this globalized territory system, that just benefits everybody. If you have 25 promotions under the WWE, mind you, the way I'm looking at it, and it could possibly play out, the NFL. The NFL has 32 teams. Each team is in a city, but also we got to look at it in a bigger scope. Think of FIFA. Think of a wrestling version of FIFA, where you have all these teams across the globe, and they're competing or what have you. And instead of teams competing, you have promotions where wrestlers compete. So you still have those promotions keep their brand identity, their history and everything, but they're under the WWE league, so to speak. Now, going into point 3, transforming WrestleMania into a FIFA Grammys Super Bowl. Now, here's something to think about. Of course, we are on the road to WrestleMania. We got Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, and for the past several years, there has been speculation. Let me phrase it, not speculation, a discussion and discourse. Hey, who's the next big guy for WWE? Main event of WrestleMania, and this. Now, mind you, we do have to keep in context, the model for WrestleMania has practically been the same since WrestleMania 3. That was the template. And they've just, throughout the years, they've kept that template, a few tweaks here or there, but it's practically been the same template. You have the big main event, like Hogan and Andre. You have the match that's going to steal the show, Savage and Steamboat. You have the tag team match with a compelling story, Bulldogs and Hart Foundation with a crooked ref. You have that soap opera aspect. And then the several other, the retirement match, fighting over talk shows and all that stuff, Piper and Adonis. So they've had, that was pretty much the template, and they've pretty much kept that same template till this day. And what this does, again, transforming WrestleMania into the World Cup, the Grammys, or the Super Bowl, instead of having everything centered around WWE, again, going back to what I said earlier, Federation and everything, why not have it like the Super Bowl? Each promotion that you have in your territory have their top champion be on WrestleMania. Mind you, keep in mind, WrestleMania is 2 nights. Now, what they could do, and this is pretty interesting, and this has been talked about, have either one night or or both nights, instead of having it on a network or pay-per-view television, have it on NBC or primetime television. Reason why I say that is because this falls in line with, and I'm jumping the gun, is we see a great demand for live sports. Now, some of you may not think, oh, WWE is not a live sports, pro wrestling is not a live sports. It is very feasible entertainment that the networks don't have to pay a union or a production company to produce. They can produce it, and the networks don't have to pay the wrestlers because WWE pays their wrestlers, so they don't have to do that. transforming WrestleMania into like a Super Bowl presentation or a FIFA presentation. I mean, you think about it, um, 3.5 hours, 4 hours, 2 nights. You can have it on two separate networks and everything. You're having at least, let's face, you have 4 matches. Wait a minute, 6 matches, 12 matches. You get 12 promotions worldwide, on national television, Super Bowl, ad revenue. Like there's a whole lot of things that could happen potentially with this. Now, do I see this logically happening if Tony Khan and Shad Khan purchase this? Very slim, but because that discussion has been made before, it was before the pandemic. Hey, what if we put WrestleMania, on a Sunday on live television to get, ad revenue like the Super Bowl and everything, and charge, these sponsors to airtime and everything, commercials and everything. Something to think about, because if WWE and pro wrestling is being looked at like live sports equivalent to NFL, NBA, MLB, all that, then they should consider going that route. Like, hey, we have the biggest event. Mind you, right now it's Super Bowl, WrestleMania 39. Next year will be 40. That's just as much big time events as the Super Bowl was back when it was Super Bowl 40. And look what that was doing. So you look at that, you're like, man, that's something that, man, they should really think about it, because WrestleMania is synonymous with professional wrestling. You mentioned WrestleMania. Oh, that's that WWE. Oh, yeah. And people start bringing back memories and everything. And let's face it, granted, WWE is a billion-dollar company, but there are creative aspects presentation-wise that needs an update, and if you want to say a reboot of something different. Most of us, I grew up WWE. That's the first promotion I was exposed to and everything. So I remember the first 8 WrestleManias. And granted, it was great at that time how they did things, but it does feel like that WrestleMania needs to update to 2023. And what I mean by that is, if we look at the landscape of entertainment, there's so much cross promotion and cross licensing and everything. And what I mean by that is, for instance, you have movies that are licensed on Peacock, specific movies on Peacock. Let's say Halloween. There you go. I'll use that because that's my favorite movie. But then they license it to, let's say, a Tubi TV. They license it to a HBO Max. I don't see it too much on Netflix, but you get what I'm saying? So if our entertainment, and not only entertainment, but just as look around just our daily life, there's so many things that are intertwined, that to see a brand like WWE in its current state, where it's very exclusive, no, we are the pinnacle, like, it kind of it's kind of like an oddball now. It was pretty cool, and like, oh man, it's cool, 10, 15 years ago, but it does feel like an oddball, because like, man, like, I can watch CBS on all these live streaming, and this goes in with the streaming channels and services and everything. Like, they're so entwined, and the programs that they offer so entwined, and just they could be on this streaming service or that streaming service. And to see an entertainment brand like WWE be very exclusive with how they operate with anything within their genre of wrestling, to be exclusive and like, no, we don't, like, it is kind of odd for 2023. It's like, man, it's kind of like cool. Again, it goes back to, man, it'd be cool if they work with other promotions. So I do see something like that maybe talked about, and potentially could happen. Now, going back to the next point, another pro. The WWE network operating like ESPN. More in particular, SportsCenter. Why do I say that? I bring back, I'll go back to a memory when the WWE network first launched. And at that time, I was in a broadcasting school, the Illinois Media School. And I remember myself, a good colleague of mine, DJ Epidemic, God rest his soul, so my good buddy, KG, Kevin Gray, and one of our colleagues, JR Bank. And we were discussing about the WWE Network. It's like, man, the WWE Network should be like a hub for all these promotions. Like, hey, if you want to be on the network, we'll charge you, blah, blah, blah. You get promotion. Like, people are already going to be watching the network. Why don't you, hey, if you want to come on, showcase your blah, blah, blah. Of course, that didn't happen unless companies were, hey, we're close to going out of business. Hey, we'll buy you and put your video content on there. Now, reason why I say this is a possible potential if Shad Khan and Tony Khan purchase WWE is one, Tony Khan's and Shad Khan's involvement with the NFL. Now, the NFL has its own network. They have, they're on Fox, CBS, NBC, ESPN, NFL Network, and of course now YouTube TV. The reason why this is a possibility of WWE operating as ESPN. One, on the WWE Network, they have a morning show called The Bump. Now, The Bump is cool. They interview wrestlers and, their take and everything. And then, things they're doing in the community and stuff like that. Now, you take that concept and you expound on it. And what I mean by expound on it is you take that concept and now you add other promotions. Now, think about this. And those of you who watch The Bump, think about this. What would you watch? Would you watch the same thing that we're seeing already with The Bump? Or would you watch at 8 o'clock in the morning, hey, we got live coverage from Wrestle Kingdom where Kenny Omega wrestled Will Ospreay, AEW guy. Oh, we have feedback from Tama Tonga defeating Carl Anderson, a WWE guy who lost to a New Japan guy. Oh, we had the debut of Mercedes Moné, a former WWE wrestler, showing up there. That's the morning aspect. And mind you, look at the way ESPN operates as far as their news coverage. Look at how pro wrestling media is covered now. It's pretty much like ESPN to some extent. Again, you look at how ESPN has the NBA, they have Major League Baseball, they have hockey. They pretty much have every sport on there, broadcasting on there. And then, of course, you have SportsCenter in the morning, you have SportsCenter in the evening, and then you have it at night. And what better way to promote whatever events that are going on within this league of promotions than having a SportsCenter for professional wrestling? This is something, I know many of you are like, this is so far-fetched. I don't think Tony Khan would do it. Granted, that's fair enough. But keep in mind, this is something that's been discussed amongst fans and media like, man, a wrestling version of SportsCenter. Holy crap. Think about all the events that occur in one night. So think about WrestleMania weekend. Let's say there is a SportsCenter of wrestling. I know this because I have the events in my phone and everything. Let's say there's at least 40 events. You can have coverage as far as all these 40 events and where this guy's going over here. And hey, could this be something that's happening over here? Look at how ESPN reports just speculation and rumors. Think of all the speculation and rumors that happen in wrestling. But yet we have to go to Twitter and this brand, that brand, this brand, and you have a SportsCenter version of wrestling. Hey, there's a rumor that this guy might be thinking about this guy and going here, and hey, this could be something that's happening over here. And also think about this. WWE and AEW and New Japan have press conferences after their events. Granted, you have it on YouTube, but if you have a network and you're doing all these events, bam, you can do the WWE or, SummerSlam press conference and, oh, there's this house show and such. We got footage from here. Oh, we have this, we have there. So with that, I do see that happening where the WWE transforms into what many people originally thought it could turn into. And I do think, and we also got to keep in mind, Tony Khan is a wrestling fan. He's a wrestling fan like us. I wouldn't be surprised if that's something he would think about, like, man, with the resources and just what WWE has, like, man, we could have a Sports Center version of WWE. Now, mind you, that's a big task to accomplish because, of course, you got to keep it 24/7 and everything. But mind you, they have a network, they have all this, so you would have to be real specific. I wouldn't be surprised if they use an earlier model or 90s model of how ESPN used to do Sports Center, where Sports Center was live at night and they had, kind of like a recap or an early morning version. And in the day, they just had their programming. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did go their route. They would do something like that. But this is something to keep in mind. All right. Mind you, this whole video, keep in mind of all this stuff. Next, capitalizing on the demand of live sports. If you look at the current landscape of professional wrestling and you look at the current schedule of professional wrestling, none of the promotions compete against each other in time slots. Let me break it down for you. On Monday, AEW Dark Elevation comes on right before Monday Night Raw. On Tuesday, AEW Dark and NWA kind of overlaps with each other. Or actually, it's like one comes on before the other. You get what I'm saying. And then you have NXT. On Wednesday, you have AEW Dynamite. On Thursday, you have Impact Wrestling, and you did have MLW at 8 o'clock, so 1 hour and everything. Then on Fridays, you have SmackDown, and then right after, you have AEW Rampage. So the model's already there for the territories to be exposed and everything as far as TV distribution and stuff like that and broadcasting. And then on Saturdays, you got NWA in the morning on YouTube, and then you have Wild Women Wrestling in some markets at 6 and 9 p.m. So you have that. So mind you, that's 15 hours of wrestling. And I know many of you are like, what, really? Like 15 hours? Like, does wrestling really have 15? Like, what other entertainment thing has 15 hours of wrestling? Well, glad you asked. During the NFL season, the average hours the NFL has during a week is 15 hours a week. That's the Thursday night game, the Sunday noon game, the afternoon game, and the Sunday night game, and then you have the Monday Night Football game. They have 15 hours of football. So, with professional wrestling being looked at like live sports, they have the content for these networks to fill in where, hey, we don't have to pay all these producers and all this stuff. Hey, we could put in wrestling and boom, there you go. Next pro, TK and Tony Khan working together? Like, granted, I know many of you, they'll never work together. There's just too much ego. There's this, there's that. Let me tell you something. And I learned this a long time ago. Wrestlers, promotions, and promoters will always work. So, believe half of what you hear and nothing of what you see. What do I mean by that? Let these freaking people work. Stop taking it so damn serious. If you look at Triple H and what he's done in the last 10 years, with NXT, that's stuff that us wrestling fans liked. You look at what TK done. Mind you, there are some detractors for TK. I understand that. You can, oh, he does this and oh, he's always it. There's the same thing for Triple H. But you cannot deny that Triple H and Tony Khan within the last 10 years have given wrestling fans what they wanted. And mind you, Vince McMahon, on the other hand, has given us things that, well, there's a reason why there's so many podcasts complaining about WWE and Vince, that whole thing. But their body of work and the potential of those two working together creatively, like, that's very intriguing and that's very optimistic. Like, man, that's, mind you, you have a wrestler who is a huge wrestling, of course he's a wrestling fan, he was a wrestler, but you guys get what I'm saying. But you have Triple H, who is very creative, who understands the wrestling business as a wrestler. Tony Khan, huge wrestling fan, very knowledgeable about professional wrestling, which has been, spoken on of him highly from other wrestlers and people within the industry. So those two together, man, that's something that we really have to be like, man, Tony Khan and Triple H working together. Damn. Like, yo. Mind you, keep in mind, also throw in Shawn Michaels. Throw in, everything from AEW, who they have working with them and everything. Like, yo, this is, damn, okay, this is interesting. Also, you look at the Ring of Honor NXT thing, that whole process, like, that's interesting. Like, oh, okay, we got NXT, we got ROH. Granted, and here's something to also think about, and this ties into TK and Tony Khan's body of work and everything. Not everybody can be a world champion. Not everybody can be in the spotlight and everything. So it gives, with NXT and ROH, it gives them, hey, we got two brands. One's development, one's a little bit above it, the way it's perceived. Holy crap, we could put wrestlers there, or hey, we could put them here. Hey, if we're starting them out in the company and they can, like, there's so much stuff that they can do creatively. It's just like, ooh, man, this is, okay, this is interesting. Like, this just broadens, and this is the main thing that I see with Tony Khan and Shad Khan purchasing WWE, along with working with Triple H and everything. It just broadens the parameters that we see on WWE. They were like, man, they should be doing, man, they could do this, but of course, with Vince McMahon and the way he's done things, that's just like wishful thinking. Like, oh, damn. One other pro, and it's been something that a lot of people complain about in the last 5-6 years, is the WWE entrance themes. AEW has pretty solid entrance themes. You get Mikey Ruckus doing the entrance themes. You fix that problem right away. It's like, okay, he's got these themes. It's geared towards some of the characteristics and everything. Now, mind you, it has all his entrance themes hit. It's here. I enjoy it. I have no problem with it, but I could see if some people have an issue with it and everything. Again, this is all subjective. What one person may like, another person may not like. So this is all subjective. Another pro, and this is something that we could see happen if Tony Khan and Shad Khan purchase WWE, is the returns of a ranking standings system. With so many wrestlers, and with WWE and AEW, and just if you have those territories, like, it'd be really cool and logical to have a standings and territory system. Like, hey, it would bring creatively an emphasis on, man, I want to be the top guy and I want to have the best record to compete. Like, there's competition. Like, I think that's the big thing that comes out of this, is like, man, there's going to be so much competition and jockeying to showcase your talent and everything, that now it would help with an emphasis on the world titles, on not only world titles, but just championships in general. Like, hey, there is a renewed interest and significance on championships, where, granted, you're going to have your storylines and everything, but it's going to be really centered on these championships and how these characters want to obtain the championship, which is really cool. And it's something that, granted, if you look at the total landscape right now in professional wrestling, there's things that AEW needs that WWE has, and there's things that WWE has is lacking that AEW has. And that's where, if you put those two elements together, it's like, man, this could be really dope. And I think that's something that would be really cool and something that is not out of the question if Shad Khan and Tony Khan purchase WWE. The other thing that we would get is, oh man, what did I do that for? Okay, boom, boom. All right, one thing that final thing we could get out of that's a pro if Shad Khan and Tony Khan purchase WWE is the brand WWE becomes more like a buffet. And what I mean by that, there's going to be elements where, hey, if you like sports entertainment, here you go. If you like pro wrestling, here. If you like traditional wrestling, women's wrestling, this. If you like sports entertainment wrestling as far as women, here you go. If you want blood and guts, no pun intended, with your women's wrestling, here you go. So there, it opens up the door of more of a variety with WWE. Now, mind you, this is the pros. This isn't, there's nothing else. This is going to be great. It's going to be peaches and cream, because we all know with transition, there is, it's the tough go and everything. But no, these pros, mind you, this is wishful thinking, but I do think some of these pros could happen with a Shad Khan and Tony Khan purchasing WWE. I mean, let's face it, the Forbidden Door, that was a huge success. Now you add on WWE, and mind you, let's keep in mind that AEW was pretty much came out of All In, which was an event where Impact, Ring of Honor, New Japan, and NWA, and PWG, all of them came together, and even AAA came together to have an event. Doesn't that sound like WrestleMania? A varied version, a variation of WrestleMania. So it's like that implementation could be, or that presentation of an event where all these promotions come together could be WrestleMania eventually if this happens. Now, getting into the concerns, these are legit concerns. And I thought about this and I'm like, man, you know what? This is something like we do got to keep in mind, because, of course, the fan of us, we think of the dream matches and, man, this will be good. But also, we do have to keep a sense of realism with these when we discuss these topics in regards to, what if Shad Khan and Tony Khan purchased WWE? The first one is the big one, and this is logistic. Like, this is realistic. Could this be a repeated monopoly like WWE in 2001 when Vince McMahon purchased WCW and ECW? Now, that is a great concern, and I mentioned this earlier in the video. This is a lot of power. And what I mean by that, like, WWE is man, the brand recognition is on par with the NFL, the Grammys. It's there. And, is this going to turn into 2001? Mind you, me personally, I don't think it's going to turn out that way, because here's one thing that people, it's not mentioned a lot in WWE programming, just very briefly, but in order for WWF to purchase WCW back then, if it wasn't, let me rephrase that. So, the reason WWF was able to purchase WCW was in 1996 in the trademark infringement lawsuit with WCW over them using Diesel and Razor Ramon image and likeness and everything. And the settlement was, if WCW was ever up for sale, WWF had first bid. That's what people forget. That's why this, I know some people have the concern, oh, this would be like WWF buying WCW. No, because there's no stipulation like this between AEW and Tony Khan and WWF. That's the big thing. There wasn't a lawsuit that gave WWF leverage to purchase, or there wasn't a lawsuit for AEW. You guys get what I'm saying. So yeah, that lawsuit gave WWF leverage to buy WCW, which is one of the reasons why it's not talked about a lot. The whole media Fruition Bischoff thing really kind of fell apart because WWF had first bidding. That's not talked about a lot, and this has been documented in the documentaries with Kevin Nash, Scott Hall. Like, that's been documented. So that is a concern, but I don't see it getting to that degree. Again, will it be consolidated and stuff like this? Again, that is a legit concern. I don't see it happening today, but the concern is real. And I am not going to dismiss many people who have that concern, because that is something to think about and be mindful of, especially in 2023 with the way we're seeing a lot of consolidation and mergers in the entertainment industry. So, and in the business world, something to think about. Another concern, merchandising. And this is something people haven't thought about. And this happened, I remember when WF bought WCW, they had Jakks Pacific and WCW had Toy Biz. So they were like, you know what? We really don't need Toy Biz. We're just going to absorb everything in. And mind you, this is on a documentary on Netflix. I believe the show is The Toys That Made Us. And there's a wrestling version. They discuss wrestling action figures, and they discuss this. So that's something to think about. If Tony Khan and AEW, or Tony Khan and Shad Khan purchase WWF, are they still going to keep Mattel and Jazzwares? Which one are they going to get rid of? Something to think about. WWE already has this license with Mattel. Are they going to keep Jazzwares? Like, no. Most of the time when there's mergers and acquisitions, there's always a consolidation when it comes to this aspect of the business, where distribution and stuff like that, as far as merchandising. So this is something to think about. Also, Pro Wrestling Tees. Will Tony Khan, if they purchase WWE, are they going to keep the same distribution as far as t-shirts with WWE, or are they going to keep with Pro Wrestling Tees? And let's face it, Pro Wrestling Tees is one of the big reasons why AEW launched. So that's an interesting thing to think about. Like, hey, are they going to keep it, or are they going to go here? And what happens to Pro Wrestling Tees if they don't have AEW and, that whole thing? Now, as I mentioned earlier in this video, if they do have that territory system and they bring it back, I could see it happening that way, where Pro Wrestling Tees works with the other promotions. But that's still an interesting dilemma to have as far as merchandising. What happens to AEW ROH on Fight TV? Do they continue to have pay-per-views on Fight TV? Or does Tony Khan and Shad Khan, they have the distribution of WWE pay-per-views on a network? And mind you, that $9.99, what happens with that whole dilemma? And the Honor Club, is that going to be consolidated? Is that going to be put on a streaming service? Are they going to? It's a major concern. Man, am I going to be paying $9.99 or am I going to be paying $49.99? Like, that's real interesting. Another concern: could Triple H and Tony Khan work together? Mind you, I mentioned the pros of what they brought to the table. Again, there's a lot of ego in professional wrestling, and granted, I'm not saying they're so egotistical or anything like that, but you got to remember, you have Tony Khan, who started AEW and built it to what it is today. Granted, it still needs improvement, but it's remarkable what he's done in 4 years. You look at Triple H. He's pretty much worked his way up in a billion-dollar company. Could he work for Tony Khan? And could Tony Khan work with Triple H? That's something to think about. Granted, on the fans, oh no, they got it's like no. Business wise, let's look at this business wise. Could they work together? It's like that's a question and concern. Like, man, what if things don't go right and like Triple H starts his own promotion, and what if this like that's a lot of questions to think about. Granted, at this stage in Triple H's career, I don't think that's a possibility, but is a concern. Can they capitalize on the potential of a WWE, AEW, ROH merger? Can they capitalize it? Or are they going to, what happened in 2001 with WWF, WCW, and ECW, is that going to repeat where, all these dream matches and these scenarios that we thought that was going to happen and come to fruition really didn't pan out the way we thought it would be? That's something to think about. Are they going to capitalize on it? Are they going to capitalize on working with other promotions? Are they going to work with other promotions? That's a concern. What's the other one? I'll leave the last one. The next one I'll leave that last. But, again, how would TK and WWE work with other promotions? Mind you, it's one thing to work with Tony Khan. And this is where you have to be objective and think about this. If you put yourself in another promotion's shoes, hey, are you going to treat us like Vince McMahon and want to buy us out and, do the whole thing? So that's where, how would they work with other promotions? Would other promotions work with them? Or do they feel threatened like, hey, they want to buy us out and take over the world and everything as far as professional wrestling and sports entertainment? That's a concern. Is he going to turn and like, man, I want to buy New Japan. I want to buy this. I want to buy that. I want to buy Impact. I just want to buy all of it. That's major concern. Mind you, I want to reemphasize. I'm not saying he's doing that. This is hypothetical. This isn't a smear campaign on both WWE and AEW. No, this is just hypothetical. Just what if? But that's a concern. The next one is the contract status of wrestlers, and would it diminish promotions negotiating leverage? If they buy this, Shad Khan and Tony Khan, like, does that help the wrestlers have a level negotiating power with other promotions? Like, hey, I don't want to work with AEW or the Federation, as I called it in this video. I want to work for New Japan, and they start negotiating and everything. Does that give the other promotions a balance leverage as far as negotiating and stuff like that? Something to think about, especially if they do have a territory system. Is that something they want to work with? And lastly, the big question, and this is something that has been asked when this came out, that Shad Khan and Tony Khan were interested in buying WWE. Can Tony Khan handle such a monumental task? That's a concern. We see what's transpired in the last 4 years with AEW. Of course, the things that several wrestlers have said who've worked there, like, hey, they do need to tighten up the infrastructure, and they need help in this, and I tried to talk to this person, they didn't do this and they didn't do that. Can he handle that? I do see that with AEW, they have improved their. You see the improvement in their infrastructure, and you see the growth. Granted, not everything is going to be peasy and great and all this other stuff, but give them credit for what they've done in 4 years and just how they've grown and how they've adjusted to that growth, and recognizing, hey, this is one thing we need to work on, and this. They've tried to rectify those things as the best as they can, and WWE as well. So I think in that aspect, that concern, I mean, that's where Triple H and his guys and Shawn Michaels can help Tony Khan, and then also look at the enthusiasm that Tony Khan has as far as professional wrestling and providing the fans. That's something to think about. And also, I want to leave you guys with this. Think of this month alone. The Elimination Chamber in Montreal and AW Revolution. Now, AW Revolution had a very suspect build, but you can't deny that was a very good pay-per-view. And Elimination Chamber, that was a great pay-per-view. So you had two great pay-per-views, and I want you to just think, what if that was all under TK and Triple H, and they were working together? And then you add in an Okada. You add in a Josh Alexander from Impact. You add in a Jacob Fatu from MLW. Well, we'll see about that, how that lawsuit goes, but you add in a Nick Aldis. You add in a Vikingo from AAA. You add in a Kairi Sane and Julia from Stardom to go against Charlotte. Ooh, man, it's so good. But let's see what happens. Let's see how this plays out. This is a what if. It's not saying this is going to happen or, this is going to, no, this is a what if. Again, it's been speculated that the private investment fund and Shad and Tony Khan are like the final two that real prospects to buying WWE. We'll see if that happens. But man, this is an interesting discussion. Let me know what you guys think. Comment below. Give me your feedback as far as what if Shad Khan and Tony Khan purchase WWE? I mean, it's fun to think about. I couldn't do this video without addressing the concerns because, let's face it, as wrestling fans, there's real concerns. We saw what happened. If you were, like I said, I was 19 when WF bought WCW and ECW. So I remember that. I remember the optimism, the hype. Man, we're going to see this, and it did not happen, and it just went in a downward slope. So that's something that, granted, is a legitimate concern that wrestling fans who were around back then have now, as far as TK and Shad Khan potentially buying WWE. But again, let me know what you guys think. Follow the House of Wrestling on all social media platforms. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Man, this was so fun. I'm glad to be somewhat back. I'm doing well. Great. Again, let me know what you guys think about this Shad Khan, Tony Khan. What if they buy WWE? It is fun. Let's see what happens in the next 6 months in 2023. Again, I do want to emphasize and make this point. I know some people, that'll never happen. Look at what's happened in professional wrestling in the last 2 years. Never say never. So with that, let's have fun, wrestling fans. I'm out.